This is a product that's made by Natura. They're a very large film conglomerate. They make a whole series of films in every conceivable category. Now, I did this film, which is the Natura SO490. This is a certified latex media. I did this double-sided. There's a little bit of a gap here, but not much. One of the reasons there's not much of a gap is because this is effectively a polypropylene. It is the SO400 8 mil polypropylene. You have to lower the temperature. I am running this at a low temperature because I do not want the media to deform. This is a nice smooth media. It prints beautiful, but if you put too much heat on it, it's not going to take that heat and it's going to deform. So I have to keep a low temperature. And I'm running at 12 pass with a very high interpass delay. Also, with a lot of polypropylenes, especially if you're printing double-sided, side A will often have a treatment or a coating, in many cases an aqueous compatible coating, that will allow you to print very successfully. This is more of a universal coating, but it does work quite well for latex. Here's the rub. When you go to the second side, that coating either may not be there or may not be quite as effective. And so then you may have to make some adjustments. Side A, in other words, may print flawlessly at the settings you want, and then when you do your double-sided, you notice, hey, this isn't drying or this is bleeding. Well, that's not uncommon on this type of material because the side B may not be treated in the same way that side A is. I have even had films like this where I run side A and it's totally flawless, and if you just did it as a blockout one-sided, perfect. And then I go to side B and I switch to a whole nother pass mode. So I'll go to 16 pass because I need to slow that thing down to keep the heat down, and I may even have to adjust the ink load because side B now will not take the same settings as side A. That's not uncommon. In this particular case, this product was actually pretty good on both sides, being quite similar. Everything lines up quite nicely. I have a fairly low temperature. I am running at 12 pass. I do recall putting a noticeably high interpass delay. Interpass delay is just a pause between the passes of the printer, and what it's doing is it's buying me time to get a little more dwell time through the heat to make sure that everything is dry. If you run with a polypropylene and you get right on the border of being cured, it may be dry, but if you scratch at it, you'll scratch the ink right off the material. That effectively means that you simply did not get enough heat on it to fully cure it where it can bond to the material. And that does happen with polypropylene. If I can, I want to find a polypropylene that has an aqueous coating. The aqueous coated polypropylenes are going to give me the best ink impact into the polypropylene. But it's very rare. I do not know of any double-sided aqueous coated polypropylenes on the market. And so usually you'll have to settle for a universal coating or you'll get aqueous on one side. And then the second side is always going to be a bit of a challenge. So I ran this on a latex 560. I have a little bit of shrinkage, which you can see at the end, but not much. It's actually quite good. The imaging was very nice. I know I ran with a interpass delay, and I may have even reduced the amount of ink a little bit to compensate on side B, because sometimes side B is going to print a little differently than side A, and it won't take the heat, and it won't take the ink. And you'll have to kind of get a feel for that by playing around with different polypropylenes. But nice product from Natura, everything printed beautifully. This is one of the best sort of double-sided polypropylenes or synthetic papers that I've seen. This would be a very good choice if you did, if you put a little weight on it and you did a hanging, double-sided, point-of-purchase, point-of-sale kind of banner like you see in a lot of stores. You could easily put like a little weight on this and hang it, and everything would look great. You have a lot of opacity there, very, very little translucence, if none at all. And this is an easy polypropylene double-sided. I was able to get this to work. It took a little finesse, but if you're patient and you understand how these films work, you can certainly accomplish that on a 500 or 300 series 365 latex that supports the double-sided workflow, which latex supports double-sided workflow, 365 and 500 series printers.